Hey everyone, Chris Mattson here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to suppress features in a design table. Let's do it. I'm going to demonstrate this using the 3, 2, 1 blocks that we created using a design table in Solidworks. And what are we going to do? We're going to turn on and off these holes. Okay, let me make sure it's clear where we're starting from. I have a design table that is very similar to the one I created in the last video. It simply has every possible configuration for the 3, 2, 1 block from 4 inches down to 1 inch, where I have followed the rule that length is always greater than or equal to width, which is always greater than or equal to the height. Followed that rule because I need that in a little bit of my strategy that I'm going to put forward to solve this problem. All right, so you can see the different versions that we have. So let's just look at the 3, 2, 1 block. And now what we want to do is learn how to suppress features. So we're going to open up our design table. When our design table gets large, it's a good idea to open it up in a new window, which will open it up straight in Excel and not Excel embedded in Solidworks. So here's my design table. Okay, it's asking me if I want to bring in these other parameter values, and the answer to that is no. Okay, so we have a user input area, which is this user input area. I will make it green so we can think of user input area as being green. We want to have a new user input area, which is that we want to specify whether we want the holes to be present. So I'm going to add in a new column, and I'm going to say has holes, question mark. And if it is yes, we will set that equal to 0, and if it is no, we will set that equal to 1. And why are we choosing those values? It turns out that when we use the $state at command, that is going to suppress or unsuppress things. If it is suppressed, the value of that will be 1, and if it's unsuppressed, the value of that will be 0. Therefore, if we want our holes to exist, we don't want them suppressed. Therefore, we're going to pop a 0 in there when it comes time to do it, and we'll do it in just a second. All right, so I always like to start my design tables by doing something expected, like by having all the holes in there, and then we'll use the design table to turn them off. In the design table, you can see that I'm going to manipulate everything to the left of this red line. Solidworks is not going to read any of that. And everything to the right of this, Solidworks is going to read it. I happen to know that all of these columns right here, which have the parameter handles and the parameter values, they're not going to be needed right now because I've already checked the design table and it works. So what I'm going to do is just hide these so we don't have to look at them. And what I'm going to do is prepare now to have the $state command right here. Now, what do we want to do? We want to turn off and on the cuts that we did. And we actually only did 3 cuts. We did a circular cut right in the middle of one face, and then a circular cut right in the middle of another face, and then a circular cut right in the middle of the other face of the blocks. And so those are the only 3 cuts that we did, and we want to learn how to turn them off. A cut in SolidWorks is called a cut-extrude. Cut-extrude. And we're going to have cut-extrude 1. And we're going to have cut-extrude 2 and 3. So I'm just going to go in and rename these here. If you don't spell these right, this won't work. So maybe I should check to make sure that I've spelled them right. Okay, let's see. Extrude, cut-extrude 1. Excellent. Okay, so now if I want to have the hole present, I need the value in these columns to be 0. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm simply going to use Excel logic, use an if-then statement, and read in what's going on in column D to specify what's going to happen in column AY. So for example, here I'm going to say equals if. So if this cell equals 1, then don't turn off the cut. If it does not equal 1, then do cut off the cut. Now I should have a 0 there because this means that I want the hole to be present, and therefore it's going to put a 1, or excuse me, a 0 right there. If I did this right, then I'll pop a 0 over here, and the 1 in AY will turn to 1, which is exactly what it did. Okay. So another thing to know here is that this column D is the same column that needs to be referred to for all of these columns AY, AZ, and BA. And I can just do some quick copying. If I put a $ in front of this D, it means that when I copy across columns, the column letter will not increment upward. And so I can now take this and pull it over this way. And I can see that it says D3 in that column, and in that column it also says D3, and in that column it also says D3. Now I could have put a $ on the 3, but that would have caused it to not increment when I copy down. And it turns out that right now I want it to increment the row number as I copy down. And let's see if it did that. D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8. So that's worked just as we want it to. Okay, so let's take 1 or 2 of these and turn off the cuts. Okay, we'll turn off the cuts on the 4x4x4 and the 2x2x2, and we'll leave them on everywhere else. What we do now is when we have opened up the design table in Excel in a separate window, all we have to do is close it up here, and it will automatically go back to SolidWorks and read in that new file. So this one, the 321 configuration should have holes, and it does. The 4x4x4 configuration should have no holes, and it does not. Configuration 2-2-2 should have no holes, and it does not. And 3-1-1 should have holes, and it does. So now you can see we're controlling the presence or the non-presence of the holes. I'm just going to go in there and just do another test. Okay, edit design table. And we will simply... Okay, there's a little flashing thing at the bottom here. This means SolidWorks is trying to ask me a question. It is giving me all these other options now that I can bring in. I don't want to bring in any of them, so I'm just going to take that. And I'm basically just going to go do... turning them off every other one. And you can see that the columns in AY and BA have all changed. Okay, so closing this, and we'll be able to go in now and see what has changed. So before has no holes. Okay, now look, SolidWorks has read in what has changed, and you can see the dashed lines over here. These are ones that are new changes to the configuration that have not been opened yet. So if I open up these ones, they should all have no holes. Okay, no holes, no holes, no holes, no holes. And the bottom line is that is how you control the presence or the non-presence of features in SolidWorks. We use that $ state at and then the name of the feature, and we are done. Okay, that's it. I'm about to tell you that I'll see you in the next video, but the simple version of this is done. Now I'm going to show you the complicated version of it. You can stop watching if you feel like you need to, but you'll be better off learning this little piece. Okay. In our particular design table, we have some problems. And in our design table, our problem is that if we go to something like, say, the 1x1x1, and we look over at the design tree, we have a whole bunch of these errors/warnings. And look what we have the errors on. We have the errors on pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 4, pattern 5, pattern 6, pattern 7. Turns out there's no pattern 3. When I was creating the original part, I probably created L pattern 3 and then deleted it, and that's why it's gone. And what is going on here? Well, SolidWorks is having a hard time patterning these things because it's only 1x1x1. So what we need to do is we need to use a little bit more logic to clean up our design trees and have it be just right so that it doesn't cause us trouble in the future. So I'm going to do that right now and talk through some of it so you can see how that works. Okay, so what we want to do is we need to know when to turn off L pattern 1, L pattern 2, and so on. So we're going to go back into our design tree, our design table. Edit design table. If we are lucky, maybe SolidWorks will tell us that all those features are available to us, which it did not say. So we'll just have to type this in by hand, and that's okay. We are going to have the $ state at L pattern 1. I believe that's right. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to copy this over, and we're going to rename them. Okay, L pattern 1 to L pattern 2. Making sure I spelled that right. Remember, we don't have an L pattern 3, so we're going to go to L pattern 4. Now we're going to have an L pattern 5. Notice I have to kind of like use the keyboard to mouse or to get over, because if you click on these, they're like hyperlinked, so you don't want to click on those. All right, and then L pattern 7. Okay, so it's going to take a little bit of time to fix this up, but we fix it up, we'll get a clean design table, and that will be quite good for us. Okay, so I have drawn in my iPad the strategy that I'm going to use to know when it's time to turn off a pattern or not a pattern. So I'm going to refer to that right now. In order to have a sense for what needs to be suppressed, we've got to understand basically what's going on with when we want the patterns to be turned off. So this way is length, this way is width, this way is height. I always do this in my mind. Length is always bigger than width, and width is always bigger than height. When I talk about length, width, height, that's what I mean. So, pattern 1, L pat 1, is in this direction on the model. L pat 2 is in this direction in the model. L pat 4 is in this direction in the model. L pat 5 is in that direction in the model. And then off to the side there, if I could see the side of this, we would see this thing. So this is the side view. Oops. The side view. And on this one, L pat 6 is in that direction, and L pat 7 is in that direction. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out the if-then relationships. Okay, so if W equals 1, then what this would mean, if W equals 1, then we're looking at just 1 inch of this. We're thinking about this portion right here. So we will want L2 to turn off. So if W1, or excuse me, if width equals 1, then we want L pat 2 to be suppressed. Okay. If L equals 1, then we want L pat 1 to be suppressed. That's what will happen for this when we look at the top view. Now when we look at this side view that I'm pointing out right here, we need to do the same thing, okay? Okay, so this one here, I'll make this thing right here. This one is not affected by this one is not affected by H. This one right here is not affected by W. And this one right here is not affected by L. Okay, so that's why in this area I don't have any relationship with the if-then statements with H. However, down here, I've got to do them with all the other ones. So if L equals 1, okay, if L equals 1, then I want to turn off LPAT 4. I want to suppress that. Okay. And if H equals 1, then I want LPAT 5 to be suppressed. Okay, and then I got to go on to my next one here. If H equals 1, then I want LPAT 6 to be suppressed. And if W equals 1, I want L. Okay, so I messed up on this one right here. This should be 7. Okay, so if the height, which is this direction, is just 1, then I want LPAT 7 to be suppressed. If the width, which is this direction, is equal to 1, then I want LPAT 6 to be suppressed. Okay, now these are the relationships that we need. These ones right here are the relationships that we need in order to get the logic in Excel in the design table to work just right. So let's go make that happen. We're going to start by looking at when this cell, which is the length, is equal to 1. Oh, so actually I need to do this, okay? If this value is equal to 1, then I want some things to happen. I want the pattern to be suppressed. And suppression equals 1 in this case. And if it is not equal to 1, I don't want it to suppress. So I should get a 0 because I have a 4 in that column. If for some reason over here I had a 1 in this column, then the logic would change, okay? We're going to leave that as a 4 for now because I want to keep my default the way that it was. Okay, and so just looking at this for a second. Okay, so for L pattern 1, when L1 equals 1, excuse me, when L equals 1, L pattern 1 needs to be suppressed, which we just did. Okay, that's great. We're going to do that for this entire column. And let's just look at what we have here. A3, okay, great. So we're just going to copy that all the way down. And let's see if that worked. Yes, when there was a 1, it became a 1. Excellent. Now we need to look at L pattern 2. And L pattern 2 is what happens when W equals 1. So we want to say if this one equals 1, then we want to suppress it, and if not, we don't want to suppress it. Okay, so we're going to take this then, and we're going to copy it down. And there should be a few times where it turned 1, and that is right. That's where we have a 1, then we have a 1, and then we have 2 1s down there. So that worked just fine. Now, for L pattern 4, you might be saying to yourself, how in the world do you know this stuff? It's because I worked it out on this sheet, this picture. I figured out, it didn't take very long. I just thought through when something is only 1 unit long, what am I going to turn off? What patterns am I going to turn off? Okay, so our next one then here is L pattern 4. And L pattern 4, okay, when L1, which is, or excuse me, when L is equal to 1, then we're going to turn that off. So when that's equal to 1, we're going to turn that off. And when it's not, we're not going to turn it off. Okay, and let's just see if that worked. That should actually look exactly like this column, which it does. Excellent. Let's look at L pattern 5. L pattern 5 says that when h is equal to 1, this one says if h equals 1, then I'm going to suppress it. If not, I'm not going to suppress it. And we are going to copy that. And every time h was a 1, yeah, that's looking great. Then we're in good shape. Now let's look at L pattern 6. L pattern 6 is if w equals 1. Okay, we forgot to say the if statement. If w equals 1, then suppress it. If not, don't suppress it. Okay, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Clicked the hyperlinked thing. Okay, and then we have to look at L pattern 7. And L pattern 7 is if h equals 1. So if h equals 1, then suppress it. Otherwise, don't suppress it. Okay. Excellent. We're going to save this. We're actually going to do one other thing, which is we still have this whole problem. It's not really a problem, but we're going to come back to that in a minute. I'm going to turn all of these into 1. I want to say that I want holes present in everything. Let's see if I can get rid of the errors that are happening in my design tree by using the suppression on the patterns. So let's save this. We'll see what kind of errors we had in our spelling or what kind of errors we had in other stuff. I need to rebuild some of these, and remember, these are only the ones with the ones that are giving us trouble. So, ooh, beautiful. Check this out. Look at our design tree. We no longer have those errors in there, and we see that the patterns are turned off. They're suppressed. They are grayed out, means they've been suppressed. Okay, let's go see if we have done this on all of them. Okay, so on the 2, 1, 1, we should have, yes, beautiful situation. Remember, we only have these problems on the ones with the ones. Just gonna look at enough of these to feel confident about it. Let's go over to the 4, 1, 1. Excellent. So we have now been a little bit cleaner in the way that we've dealt with this. And now we have a design table that's clean, and we used a little bit of Excel logic to do that, and that's excellent. Okay, we yet have another thing we need to do in order to get the suppression to be just right. We're going to open up our design table in a new window, and we need to learn a new command in Excel logic, and that is the OR command, because the truth is I will suppress the patterns when I have just a unit of 1, because then I won't want a pattern beyond just kind of the original cut. But I will also suppress when I don't want holes. Okay, when I don't want holes. So I have to add in the OR function here. So let's just think for a second about how that works. Okay. In this area, I want to say if, let me think logically for a second about how I want this to work. We already mentioned that if it's a 1, we want to suppress some stuff, but we also want to suppress the patterns if column D has a 1 in it. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, if column D has a 1 in it. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the OR command, and the way the OR command goes is like this. It's going to look at these logical statements that are in here. A3 equals 1, or if D3 equals 1, then we will suppress. If not, we won't suppress. That's what this says right here. I better say it one more time. If either of the two things happens here, A3 equals 1 or D3 equals 1, we will suppress. Otherwise, we will not suppress. That's what that is telling us. Okay, now I just fixed this one, and I want to have to refer to column D over and over again. So I am going to put a $sign on that in case I need it. I'm going to come in here, copy this one all the way down. That's good. I now have my OR statement in there. And now I have to go do this for all the columns. And I can copy over, so I can see right here that this one is going to refer to column B. So I can actually just take this thing like this, and now it is the right code referencing B. So this one will work if I pull this one down. Then this one is referencing A. Okay, so if I bring this over, it's going to turn this one into a C, which we don't want to have. So I'm going to turn that into an A, because that's what was there. Okay, I'm just trying to keep track of all the issues in my head. Okay, in this column, it's going to refer to column C. So if I bring this guy over, I just need to go into here and change this B to a C. Then I'm going to take this thing and copy it down. That's going to work. And then, okay, this one is C. This one is referring to B. So I'm going to copy this over. Whoops. Hit that hyperlinked thing. And this was referring to B. Okay, so I need to take this one and switch this to a B. You might ask yourself, like, why we're going through all of the effort to do this. We're going through the effort to do this because if we can get a clean design table, then we can manage all kinds of configurations with virtually no work, even though it took a little bit of time to get it worked up at the beginning. Okay, so now all the pattern suppressions are controlled by whether there's a 1 in its length, width, or height, and whether we've said we want the whole on or off. So maybe this will solve our problem. I kind of think it will, but let's find out by just closing this. Okay, our 4x4x4 should have no holes, and it almost has no holes. Okay, our 4x4x3 should have no holes, and our 4x4x2 should have no holes, but I think that was the last one. Oh no, maybe it's that one as well. Okay, then these ones should be full of holes, and these 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 should be full of holes. Except something weird has happened right there. We'll come back to that one in a minute, okay? Okay, so some of the things that's going on here is that these are our original cuts, and our original cuts are somehow not suppressing on the 4x4x4, or the or these ones. Okay, so we're gonna save this. We're gonna go into our design table. Okay, design table. Okay. This right here is the suppression of those cuts that are not appearing, and we're telling it we do not want to suppress those. So we might have our logic backwards on these ones. Okay, great. This is a problem. And so what we're saying is that if D4 is equal to 1, see, that's the problem. If it's equal to 1, we want to suppress it. And if it's not equal to 1, we don't want to suppress it. So this is our problem. We're going to take this and copy it all the way down, and those will all flip sizes, basically. Okay, and then these ones, this also needs to be fixed right up here. All right, so this was just a bit of error on my part in terms of getting the logic right the first time. So let's close this thing. This is the process we go through to kind of debug the thing. So 4x4x4 should have no holes. This one should have no holes. This one should have no holes. This one should have no holes. And I believe the other ones should have holes. Yes, holes, holes, holes. Now this one was weird. Okay, and it has a hole, but it's missing a chamfer. Okay, we're gonna figure out what to do with that in a second. Just checking these, make sure they're right. Okay, also no chamfer on that one. And no chamfer on that one. And no chamfer on any of these. Okay, whenever that happens, we have control in the design table. So we're gonna go back into the design table and we're gonna tell it that we want those chamfers to come on when there are holes. So how do we do that? We come in here into design table, open up the design table. There are 4 chamfers on this product. The 3 that are associated with the holes that are in the faces, and then the 1 chamfer that's around the side. So I'm using that knowledge that's in my head because I made the model, but I better just jump out of this and show you how I know what's going on there. If I go over into the design table, excuse me, the design tree, I can see that chamfer 1 is the one that I actually want to come on, and chamfer 2 and chamfer 3, and then chamfer 4 is the chamfer that's all the way around the edges. So it's chamfer 1, 2, and 3 that I need to force to come on when we have a hole. So I'm going to come in here into my design table, open up in a new window, and I am going to do basically what we just did a few minutes ago. So we are going to, let me move this iPad. We're going to say $ state at chamfer 1. And then I know I have 3 chamfers. So I'm going to go rename those. 2, and we rename this one to 3. And when a hole is present, so all we need to do on this one is say if D3 is equal to 0, that means there are holes. If there are holes, we need those to be present, which means they're not suppressed, and otherwise we want them to be suppressed. I'm going to go in here and put a $ in front of this D, $. That will allow me to simply copy these over, and then I can copy these down, and I believe this will solve our chamfer problem. So let's save this, get out of this thing. Well, first of all, my 1 by 1 by 1, I now have chamfers, which is great. I'm trying to remember which other ones we had troubles on. I think it was this one. Actually, I can tell it's the ones that have a minus sign on them. And I see my chamfer is present there, which is excellent. And then this one should have my chamfers. So we have solved that problem. If we look at the design tree is nice and beautiful for all of these configurations, and we don't have any errors in there. If we had errors, it would actually be causing us some, it will cause us problem in the future as we try to do other stuff. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about in terms of suppression. We talked about the easy way to do it, and we talked about the proper way to do it so that our design table is nice and clean. That's it. I'll see you in the next video.